What's up guys, it's MurderInc here, back with another Raid Shadow Legends video, talking about the upcoming fusion, everything you absolutely need to know about this. So I'm going to be giving you my thoughts, showing you the new fusion, showing you the epics, the rare champions, and you can decide from there what you want to do. I'm going to be giving some pretty solid advice after testing these guys out, and later down the line I'll make specific spotlight videos on the champions for a more in-depth view on what everybody does. So let's start off with the fusion herself. Alright guys, so here we have Mother Cybele. This is the current legendary fusion force support champion from the Night Revenant faction, and I don't understand why this was the fusion. I'm going to be completely honest with you. We have decreased speed on the A1. It's an AoE. Fills this champion's turn meter. She's HP based. A2 revive on death. Increased defense. 6 turn cooldown unless you spend tons of bucks, which are probably going to go into the A1. Unlucky. Then uncanny transfer on the A3. Swaps HP with an ally. It has a bunch of cool effects here. I'm not going to get into it too much because I am going to show you what she does. And then a passive here fully heals the ally with the lowest HP whenever this champion is killed. Heals all allies by 20% of their max HP and fills their turn meter by 15% whenever this champion is revived. So we do see the kind of idea behind the champion. Soul Shepherd, revive on death. This champion dies. Once again, it is HP based, so not really sure how that works. So I'm using a retaliation set. Why? I have no idea. I could not figure out how to build this champion. I wouldn't recommend doing this. I wouldn't even recommend going for this fusion personally, but I'll get into why a little bit later. This is simply to take advantage of this A1, decrease speed, AoE, filling her turn meter, giving her more turns, hopefully getting Soul Shepherd off of cooldown faster. And I'm looking at the passive for no apparent reason. That's pretty much it. Everything is on a really long cooldown. 6 turn cooldown on the A3, 6 turn cooldown on the A2. There's hope for 3 books there, but I would never recommend booking. There's also another 3 book cooldown reduction on the A3, so I don't know. That's just where I stand. Masteries, I just did typical War Master and support tree. So before I get into the epics, let me kind of show you what I tried to do with this champion to see if it would work out at all, and we'll just go from there. Alright, so this is what I have going on. I went to the Magma Dragon in the Doom Tower, and one thing, like I already did mention here, I have to manual this, so we're using the A1. Pretty cool animation, so it definitely has that going for it. Outside of that, honestly, not too much. So let's cycle back through, wait for her turn again, use that A1, and here we are. Using the A1, she doesn't do a lot of damage. She's not built for damage. I wouldn't expect her to do any damage. And so now we're going to get to the part, hopefully, okay, it didn't die there. Okay, now we're going to hit auto and watch her work. So you're going to notice right away, once we get to her turn, that she's going to use the health swap first. Does that make any sense to you? It does not to me. I want the defense up and the revive on death. And you might be thinking to yourself, Murder, there's an AI system, you can do that. You can at the start of the match. This won't apply to any content where you're going through bosses, so you're still going to have to manual your way all the way through until you get to the boss. And there is going to be synergy. It has to do with the champion herself dying, and as an HP based champion, I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I can't even see the progression value in this champion unless, like I said, you're manualing through it. Maybe it'll help you guys in Faction Wars. I don't know for sure. She does have an awesome speed aura that I cannot knock from her. I believe it is 24% there. So that is the good news. Outside of that, I simply just don't see her value, but it is not all doom and gloom. Maybe someone's going to find out a practical use for this champion. Maybe she actually does shine in progression. If you're early game, mid game, this could be the champion for you. But I want to move on to my opinion on the epics, and it's looking pretty bright if I do have to say so myself. So let's head straight on over to the champion part. Now, there are 5 champions here behind me, and 4 of them are going to be part of this classic fusion. The ones that I'm fairly confident are going to be Magnar, Jurogen, Canelia, and she looks really weird and creepy. I'm going to tell you that, guys, right now. And then we have 2 voids. So obviously both of these voids are not going to be a part of it, but let me start off with Urogrim. Now, this guy is really, really good. We have this speed aura here, increased speed by 20% in all battles, so fantastic. We have this amazing A1, 25% chance of placing a 5% poison for 2 turns, going up to 35, 40, 45% chance. On a triple hit, that's not bad. If you use the support tree master, you get an additional 5%. So this champion is looking very solid right off the bat with a 50% chance of poisoning with that mastery on a 3 hit. Moving on to the A2, removes all debuffs from an ally, then heals them by 40%. Cooldown reduced all the way down to 3 turns. What does this mean? Clan boss, hello. Cleansing the stun, poison, and that's not all. Bizarre Vapors, the A3, 3-turn cooldown, placing 3 5% poisons once again. On top of that, like this all wasn't enough, places 2 15% continuous heal buffs on all allies for 2 turns. So I'm pretty sure you guys understand by now, this guy is already better than the fusion, if he is indeed the void picked. And I don't think he's going to be, based on what I'm going to show you next, but if this is the void picked, I would say 1010% this is the guy you're aiming for. Forget the legendary. I know people like to say I'm never going to talk down about a fusion. You never know if it's going to get buffed in the future. I really do think she's going to get buffed because her kit just makes no sense to me personally. You know, maybe through extensive testing and faction wars, like I said, you'll find a really niche use for her. Maybe she will become OP down the line. You can get it, but I would not sacrifice this guy because I cannot see a possible buff to that legendary that's going to outdo this epic if you need him. If you don't need a poisoner that cleanses and provides continuous heal with the speed aura, it's fine. You don't have to use him. But if you don't have all of that, highly recommend targeting this guy if he is indeed part of the fusion, which, like I said, I don't think he is because we have Tolf the Maimed here. Now, I say this because Tolf the Maimed isn't as good as the other epic. The other epic is OP, but this guy is pretty interesting. And basically, with my knowledge of fusions, you guys probably understand this as well. They tend not to put insanely OP epics. I mean, there were a few exceptions. Hopefully this is one, but I'm really on the side of believing that this guy's going to be part of the fusion. So we have a double hit A1, attack cannot be critical, really don't like that. Each hit heals this champion by 30%. This is probably why it can't be critical, but still, I think they should have done continuous heal or something else and allowed this to be a crit. Now you have an A2 here. This is actually quite interesting. Why I'm not going to write this guy off as just a filler void. So when not attacking bosses, meaning anything else in the game, inflicts pure damage. So pure damage is a very interesting word here, and decreases the target's HP to 50% no matter what. So keep that in mind, no matter what, 50%. I'm going to show you what I found in campaign to kind of confirm this. Inflicts damage based on this champion's max HP instead, and places a stun debuff for 1 turn if the target already has less than 50%. Inflicts damage based on this champion's max HP when attacking bosses. This attack, once again, cannot be critical. So I gave him some speed gear, nothing too crazy. Masteries, I didn't even touch the masteries, so let's go ahead, head on into the campaign. Let's set this to brutal because why not? We'll go with, I don't know, just this affinity. And let's watch Tolf the Maimed do some work. So putting on auto, he's going to start with the A2. A nice effect there, and it decreases the health immediately to 50%. So this is quite interesting here. I like this a lot because I think this holds a lot of potential in places like Doom Tower and in places like Arena where you might be struggling with a few things. Even in faction wars, if you're struggling with orc faction wars, there's one champion in one wave that's a real killer for you. This guy could be the answer. You can put him in relentless gear, you can put him in reflex gear, and I do think he has a lot of value in what he can offer. But like I said, he's definitely not going to be as good because one, he can't crit on that A1, which is unfortunate. He does have a lot of self-sustain though. I do like that. It's almost like a built-in lifesteal set, but I'm not really sure to the extent that the lifesteal can't actually manage to keep this guy sustained, this would have to be tested in much harder content for sure. Now, the only thing I didn't talk about with this champion is his passive Armor Cracker. Decreases the value of all enemy shield buffs by 50% at the start of every turn. So this champion just went from kind of okay to really good now when we're talking about only arena. Arena shields, it's a very common, people building resistance teams with gigantic shields, and you have reaction, swift parry, all of that annoying nuisance stuff. This definitely eases a lot of that pressure instantly. So decreasing the value by 50% at the start of every single turn is very strong. And if you make this guy fast and with Relentless and you want to kind of gamble some RNG, you can do it by another 50% if that Relentless does in fact proc, because it is starting a new turn for this champion. So then it says, then increases this champion's max HP by the same amount up to 25% of their max HP. So this is going to penalize people heavily for using champions like a Krisk. This is going to penalize people for using shield sets, which we do see quite often in the arena. So I do think this is a really cool passive, and I like how they added this to this guy's kit in the game. Overall, I think this guy's definitely a decent champion, and I do believe he is going to be in the fusion because the first one seems crazy OP. Let's move on to this really creepy dwarf support-based epic, Canelia, or Canelia. I'm going to say Canelia for now. So we have an A1 here, nothing too crazy. Single hit, 40% chance up to a 50 of putting the target skills on cooldown by 2 turns at random. So that's kind of okay. We have an A2 here. Whenever the champion is woken up from that sleep, has a 50% chance of replacing it with a fear for 1 turn. So this can have some pretty annoying CC effect, and it can chain pretty well. It's only 50% on the fear, and the fear isn't 100% as it is, so that's a bit interesting. Now moving on to the A3, this is a rather unique skill. Places a sleep debuff on an ally for 1 turn. Heals that ally by 50%, fills their turn meter by 50% whenever the sleep debuff expires or gets removed. So pretty much this is only good if the enemy, whatever you're facing in this game, is removing the sleep, and it cancels itself, but with a penalty to you if your champion's turn just comes up next. So this has a lot to do with really hard speed tuning. You want yourself to get cut off between Canelia and whoever's next. Heals the ally by 100% and completely fills their turn meter if the sleep debuff is lost due to taking damage from an enemy. So this part's definitely good. And there might be a little confusion here, so I'm going to clear it up just in case you overlooked it. If you are debuff stripped, it applies to the first half where it fills up by 50%. If you are hit and damage is inflicted to the champion, so you can definitely practice with like the Guardian set, Ally Protection, the Bulwark Mastery, anything you can think of that will apply damage to a champion. You can definitely use that and kind of focus the damage to this champion under the sleep debuff, filling its turn meter, giving them a turn very quickly. That's one way to approach it. It is a 2-turn cooldown, so that's another unique thing, but it's only on 1 ally, and I think it's a very interesting kind of overlap in mechanics. I'm actually curious if the champion, I'm assuming you would need accuracy to apply this to enemies. What if your champion has resistance? I don't think there's anything that puts a CC debuff on your team like this before. That's a hard CC, like a stun, a freeze, something like that. So I'm actually kind of curious to see how this is coded, if they did it correctly, or if your own team can resist this debuff from being placed on themselves. What happens if you have block debuff on and you try to apply this? So just a few things I'm curious about. On top of that, she does have an aura, increases ally speed in all battles, which seems to be a reoccurring theme between these champions here. Next we have Jirogen, who has an A1, attack down, 45, 55, 60% chance, not terrible, HP based champion here. A2 places the shield buff on this champion for 2 turns equal to 25% of their max HP, placing a provoke debuff for 1 turn. It's only a single target provoke, so I don't see huge value in that. If the target's max HP is equal to or lower than this champion, the provoke debuff cannot be resisted, so this is definitely nice if you can in fact build crazy high HP, whatever content you're using this guy in. which is probably going to be possible, especially for faction wars. So this definitely removes the need for accuracy. Now the problem with champions like this, which Plarium always seems to do, is they remove an accuracy requirement on one skill, but they have a very crucial debuff somewhere else in this champion's kit where they need accuracy anyways. I really wish they would get rid of that, make it so Fated Duel would be unique. This is the only skill that needs accuracy on the entire kit, and you get now benefit from the debuff not being able to be resisted. I think that's more along the lines of how they should have approached this. Moving on to the A3, attacks one enemy, will ignore 25% of the target's defense, will ignore unkillable and block damage. So this is pretty much like a weaker version of Peril from Mortal Macabre, a champion I did just cover in my previous video. He does true damage, ignoring 100% defense. He doesn't ignore unkillable, but he does ignore block damage, so this could be good if he hits very hard, and you have gear for HP stacking, crit rate, crit damage, all that good stuff, but I don't really see that being a key point in this champion's kit here. On the passive, this champion will receive 25% less damage at 50% or below health. Definitely a nice fail-safe, but most teams are going to be running some type of support champion that does offer you healing. So overall, this guy's okay, definitely not as good as the other ones. Moving on to the final champion here, Magnar. Champion looks cool. I like fiery champions. The weapon, in my opinion, a bit basic. It's kind of just like a block with some hole in it, which is fine, I guess. I guess it's like, he only hits it from this angle, which is, you know. Superheated Hammer A1 has a 45% chance up to a 55, 60, 65% chance of placing that defense down for 2 turns, 100% chance if the target's under HP burn, so already some HP burn synergy. Moving on to the A2, attacking all enemies, extra hit on enemies without HP burn, so a little bit of synergy with Trunda here. I doubt he hits as hard as Trunda, I'm going to be honest with you, but you never know. Has a 50% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn on enemies under HP burn, so another cool synergy with the HP burn debuff. Next we have Fan of Flames. Attacks one enemy, applies a debuff spread effect, taking 2 random debuffs from the target and placing them on all enemies under HP burn debuffs already. So kind of counterintuitive, so you do need an AoE HP burn to synergize with this champion already. This isn't going to work how I use Tila and I believe Tuhanarok, the champion that has a debuff spread, where I debuff spread the HP burn. This isn't going to work that way. You want HP burn on all of the champions first, and then this debuff spread will in fact occur, spreading whatever other buffs that I guess could be relevant, which in my opinion there really aren't any, because one of the main points of HP burn is going to be used in Spider. It's very good in Spider, so I don't know how I feel about this. Increase the duration of HP burn debuffs on all enemies by 1 turn. This can be okay, but if you do the math for HP burn, you need 2 stacks on all targets and a decent amount of raw damage, and the Spider's going to die at any stage, so a little bit interesting. As we can see in the bottom here, you cannot spread any type of CC, which definitely would have made this champion very interesting if they did add that, because right now the A3 seems a little bit underwhelming. Next we have a passive. This champion heals by 1% of their max HP every time anyone in the battle takes damage from HP burn, so once again synergy here. Kind of strange that there isn't an AoE HP burn champion in the list of new champions here from the fusion. My hot take there, no pun intended, but this guy can work if you find a way to use him in Demon Spawn, or in Demon Spawn, Faction Wars, or anywhere else in the game where you are using an HP burn, because it does seem a bit foolish unless for some reason, like I said, this A2 with this extra hit has very high damage. He is HP based and it's a little bit harder to stack HP. Let's have a look at his base HP. Not terrible, 20,970, so could be worse, could be better. Has the low threshold of crit damage, so another thing to keep in mind, but overall decent champion at best. So I'm not really going to go over the rares in details. I looked at their kits, none of them are too impressive. One thing to note is we have 4 total new rare champions here, and I did not see a single new, just making sure I'm correct, yes, I didn't see a single new uncommon. So with 4 new champions, we all know how classic fusions work. I do believe you're going to need 1 of each, or 4 copies of each to fuse an epic. I believe their current strategy last time was you need 1 of each per epic here, which I have no problem with. Like I said before, I would rather them do this than kind of overinflate the fusion pool with adding more rares that we don't need, adding to the pretty much already overflown rare pool of just useless rares we're never going to use. There are very strong ones, and the more they add rares that are mediocre at best, the lower chance you actually have of pulling those fantastic rares, such as Apothecary just pulling one out there for you. So I do like this approach. I am kind of happy they're going this route from now on. This is great to see. Alright guys, those are my thoughts and everything you need to know about this current fusion. Let me know what you think. Are you going to go for the fusion anyways? Try to pull these epics on your own after you fuse? Are you going to target some of these epics to see something that I don't see? Like I said, I am going to release a video on the epics who do look extremely useful. Give me your feedback. What are you guys going to do with this information? Which champions are you going for? Which ones are you going to skip? So I'm going to be giving you my thoughts, showing you the new fusion, showing you the epics, the rare champions, and you can decide from there what you want to do. I'm going to be giving some pretty solid advice after testing these guys out, and later down the line I'll make specific spotlight videos on the champions. Upload.